Hey, Mikey, bring over the yayo, okay?
What happens is it's warm in the studio, and for some reason, when it's warm, my nose gets itchy.
For me, it's just because I don't trim my nose hair, so they're constantly...
Oh, you know what?
That's what it is.
My nose go too far down, so I can't see the hair. I've been pretty hairy up there.
Watch Fam. I am Christian, the curator of the Theo and Harris Watch Shop.
And my name is Michael. This video is sponsored by no one. It's sponsored by no one. Had a little scheduling issue.
Today we're talking about the changing meaning of fake, particularly as it pertains to Rolex watches.
Yes, because now we see everywhere people are like, are those the original hands from 1964?
Right.
Like, you can have fake hands if they were made in 1965.
Yes.
That's fake.
It's some explanations are insidious.
Yes.
And some explanations are totally innocent. But both explanations, depending on exactly what happened, it's a very technical life.
So of course,
what?
We'll be telling the greatest story of all time.
Oh yeah, it's brutal.
Also, can you imagine like a watch nerd, their dad gives them, you know, this is my Submariner from the early 60s. Yes. And the watch guy is like, you changed the dial?
Yeah.
Like, you're not even grateful anymore. You're like, oh my God. He's like, I cleaned it for you. I want it to be perfect like I had.
That's actually funny because one of my buddies, Danny, someone said this to Danny Milton from Hodinkee.
Yes.
He inherited, I believe, his father's 5513 Submariner. Mm-hmm. Great looking watch. It's great. It's nostalgic. It's everything. But the dial and hands have been replaced, and I couldn't care less. I think it's a great watch.
Of course.
But every time he gets over his watch to someone, before he gets the story out, they're like, "Oh, sucks! They changed the dial." And he's like, "So it was my dad's, and it's a really important.
It's a family heirloom."
Yeah,
like, really it's kind of over polished too.
And I like it.
This isn't factory, is it?
It's like. Restoration is a relevant subject when it comes to all collectible vintage collectible items. It's relevant in paintings, in art.
Yes. Yep.
Museums restore art when need be. Obviously,
yes.
you know what I mean. Like,
yes,
to avoid, I suppose, what is it? It's the aging, it's the drying out, it's
just cracking, whatever they do, and that's why a lot of paintings look yellow. That's not even the painting.
That's so interesting.
I know.
And there are accepted methodologies.
Yes.
That are accepted to be not harmful. That are accepted to be that's part of it. Not bad. Not insidious. Not wrong.
You have to do this because otherwise we will lose this creation.
Exactly
it will be
right.
gone.
Exactly right. Maintenance. Same thing in cars,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
A restored, vintage car, whether it be a Porsche, whether it be an SL, a Mercedes, or it could be a Citroen. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The idea of a proper restoration is the process of sourcing new old stock parts, which are very time consuming to find and very expensive to buy.
And as time moves on, harder and harder to even find.
Yes. So even though your car does not have all of its original parts, all of the parts are correct and original to the model.
Yes.
So it is not original, but it certainly is correct and original.
And that is because there is a thought, and for some reason, we'll get into it in a second, it is not thought about in watches this way, yet at least. Maybe it's just because they're not old enough. But if we don't restore them in any way, any means necessary, we will lose them.
Exactly. Now, in watches, it's a little bit different. Because if you replace something that is damaged, let's say like a dial,
sure.
It is of course needs to be said, just like in cars, it needs to be said that the dial has been replaced with even in a correct period specific dial, whatever it might be.
Yep.
Same thing as a car,
mm-hmm.
But in the watch world, it's not looked at too kindly. Whereas in the car world, it's looked at like, oh wow, the guy did his due diligence, he did a really great job.
Car's
what a fantastic restoration!
Yeah, right.
What a great job! That must have been hard. In the watch world, if you have a replacement dial or a brand new replacement dial on a Daytona, even if it's correct, right, and you disclose it, if you choose to be honest and disclose it, which you should do, people are like, nah, it's not original.
It's not that good.
Not original.
Yeah.
No,
it's a cultural thing. It's a new thing because all of a sudden people are like, oh, you have the original one. I'll pay you way more.
Yes.
So now everybody else is like, okay, well then I'll never change anything.
Yes.
Don't change anything. Ask for all of your parts back. Like, it's very intense.
And the reality is that restoration is a part of the vintage watch game, just like it is anything else.
Yeah.
Like it is, but because there's a stigma against restoration, right? That people only want to have, original, which, again, I'm specifically talking about high value watches.
Of course.
Okay.
Yep.
They want to have original, and understandably, why.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But because there's this stigma, people lie, misrepresent.
Yes.
These are all. It's the same word, but there's a different connotation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Lie is like factory original Rolex Daytona. Misrepresentation is like beautiful vintage Rolex Daytona.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, 1965, yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
And they're like, well, it is. The dial is from 1965, just not from that watch. So the description is correct.
So it becomes very difficult.
Yeah.
So a very famous example of this sticky predicament
Yes.
is a watch that sold for over $6 million at Phillips Auction House just a couple of years ago. It's a one-of-a-kind Rolex Daytona vintage 6265. It is in white gold. It's completely unique.
Unicorn.
It's the Unicorn. Another model in white gold has never been found.
Yes.
It comes on a Rolex white gold bracelet. Okay, and it has this, pretty much immaculate black dial with these white subdials. It is a very unique watch. It is a unicorn.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
It was auctioned off by Phillips. It got over $6.5 million, and it got the money for charity.
Okay.
Okay,
Sure.
there were questions around this watch that started being asked before the auction by an anonymous Instagram account.
The famous Instagram account.
No. At the time, anonymous.
Oh.
There was a different Instagram account that caught it first. Another Instagram account found photos of this watch
Okay.
with the exact case and movement, but a different dial. Okay, and not without its pushers, without
Without the screw down pushers?
Yep, exactly right.
Wow. Okay.
So now they see this, and then the same watch pops up years later, not at the auction, but actually on Talking Watches. In John Goldberger's original Talking Watches.
Okay.
In this perfect form. It was not talked about on that Talking Watches.
Of course.
The restoration.
This is the Talking Watch, is the famous butter knife.
Yes.
Pop open the back of the
Exactly
case.
right.
Yes. Not on this watch, but an actual, not screw down, oyster Rolex.
The discussion wasn't about restoration. The discussion was about rarity and uniqueness.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
That's harmless, relatively speaking. I mean, we'll get into the insidious kind of way to look at it in a little bit, but
We'll
that
do a
is
break and then get
relatively
into
speaking
that,
harmless.
because that's where it gets... Yeah.
This watch comes to auction. Some people know about these photos that were released. Not all people know, because Phillips did not share these photos. Phillips did not comment on this. Nothing was mentioned. John Goldberger himself, allegedly, I was not here for this, but people have said that when asked to comment on any other watch, he would comment. Asked to comment on this watch, he declined to comment. He was approached originally to auction this watch, but as we know, he declined.
Yes,
Okay.
because he wanted to do it for
charity.
Yes.
So for charity, he had no problem with selling this watch that everyone knew he had for what he knew would be a large sum.
Exactly. It's such an important watch, and everybody's staring at it, that they'll be like, oh, so he got how much?
Yes.
And which is a little... It doesn't seem like a John Goldberger thing.
Yes.
It's not smooth.
Yes.
Yeah.
So here's where you are at this point. Some people know about the questions that have been raised as to its originality.
Yep.
John Goldberger won't comment. Phillips won't comment and raise awareness and address this allegation of what the party is alleging is basically fraud.
Yes.
Phillips will not confirm nor deny.
And the timer's ticking down.
The timer's ticking down.
It's getting hyped and hyped and hyped.
Auction happens. $6.5 million to charity. Now, after we talk about our sponsor, I will tell you what is maybe wrong with that. What are the different ways to look at it? And I think what is the fair way? What is possible? We'll dive into all of the conclusions that we could possibly draw in just a second.
You have the outcome too? Of really?
Course.
Of course.
Why? Of course.
Of course, my sir. Okay, we're back. The climax of all of this and what happened. And then I do want to talk about the olden days of watch culture, where there's two options, I feel like. Do I start a watch brand, or do I just keep making something until I like it? Do I modify things?
Yes. So herein lies the rub with the $6.5 million Daytona.
Yes.
An Instagram account, as we said, announced it to be questionable.
Yes.
Phillips did not respond. The watch sold for $6.5 million.
Yes.
So, number one, assuming the watch has in fact been restored, which the evidence did seem compelling.
Yes.
Okay. Is that a problem? Number one. Well, from my point of view, on its surface, the answer is no.
Right. I will say it gets to me a little dicey with the screw-down crowns.
Well, we're not getting there yet.
Okay.
If John Goldberger restored this watch to its original glory, meaning a correct dial, not the original dial necessarily, but a correct dial, making it proper.
Yeah.
That's a great service. That took time.
Yes.
If he managed to find a new bezel that is correct, that is
of the Unicorn watch, which is like,
well,
okay,
we'll get there in a second.
Right? No, but I'm saying unbelievable. Thank you.
Amazing.
Yes.
Amazing.
Thank you so much.
If he found the crown, the screw down crown pushers, unbelievable.
You're like crying. I can't believe you did this.
This is not a story I would hide at all. This is a story that I would take great pride in.
Yeah.
And I think that John Aro should take great pride in. Now, that's not what happened. The watch went to auction. Phillips never made a remark. This wasn't part of the story that it was restored. So it is kind of, it is implied by omission, basically, that the watch is original. People are trusting the Phillips brand.
Of course.
And it should have been disclosed.
Yes.
Maybe even marketed as part of the story, like I said.
Yes.
To mitigate maybe the potential depreciation.
Yep, sure.
And I think that the result still would have been remarkable. I think it would bring not only the watch front and center, but a true historian front and center.
Yes.
And the guy's a legend.
Yes, of course. That's the guy that did it, right.
Right. But that's not what happened. Now, why is the question.
Why didn't it happen?
Why didn't it happen?
Yes.
Because the presumption that I'm making before about restoring a watch with all original parts may not be a safe presumption.
Restoring the Unicorn with all original horns.
It comes down to how in the world would someone have found the only other set of white gold screw-down pushers.
Not only you found the rarest example of a Daytona ever, but then you found the spare parts to the rarest Daytona
exactly.
ever. Yes.
That's difficult. Is it even possible?
Right.
Right?
And if it was possible, where's your cape? Why are you telling everyone?
Right. Looking in even a little bit closer through Periscope online, which is an individual blogger that exposes fake watches, mostly of Panerai and Patek and Rolex through auction houses. Periscope put side by side original Rolex, screw down, pushers to the Unicorn screw down pushers in white gold. And the differences are glaring.
It's a different piece.
It's different entirely.
Right.
From a distance, fine. From head on, it's fine.
Even just
but the level,
if I block up one of them, I'm like, yeah, that looks fine. Right.
The level of quality is very, very different from the Rolex original piece to what we are seeing here on the Unicorn.
This is a difference in quality. It was so different that I thought it was a difference in design.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, the level of attention to detail here,
of course,
from kind of the beveling, I suppose.
Clearly,
everything about this seems much cheaper.
Yes.
On the other side, which leads us to believe that those pushers are not factory original Rolex pushers.
Of course.
But they are rather made up. Okay, they have been, they have been.
Yeah. They've been
manufactured.
Of course.
Now, keeping that in mind, and that's pretty fucking good proof in my mind.
Especially considering what the other Instagrammer had as well, being like, these pushers aren't even supposed to be this.
Right.
Right.
What about the bezel? If I believe firmly that the pushers are fake,
right.
Reproduction, not original, why would I believe that you were able to find a bezel?
Right.
I just wouldn't. That now that becomes a little bit more of a jump.
Yeah, right. Your hands are red. What do you mean you didn't touch the paint?
Exactly. Yes. If I had to put my money on whether or not those are original pushers, I'd have to bet no.
Yes,
fine.
I would agree.
If I had to bet my money, then at that point that it's not an original bezel, I'd probably bet that it's not.
Right.
Okay. We know the dial is a replacement. That we're certain about.
Yes.
We know that the bracelet is, while factory Rolex, not original to the watch. No problem with that at all. I think it's cool that it fits. It's from a 1507 model. It's not from a Daytona.
Understood.
It's very cool.
Right?
That's great. I have no problem with that.
Yes.
But who is not in the morally gray area, but who is morally condemnable here? Mm-hmm. Is it John Goldberger? Well, here's how I feel about the John Goldberger culpability. Mm-hmm. He went on Talking Watches. Yep. He brought the watch.
Yes.
That watch has a fantastic story that I believe firmly he didn't tell. I don't know why he didn't tell that story. I think it's a cool story.
Yeah, of course.
Even if the pushers do very much seem to be fake.
Yes.
Even if they are made up, custom for the watch, I actually don't have a tremendous problem with it.
Right.
Even if the bezel is made up, right? Mm-hmm. Not original. I think if he owned that, it would have been a great story.
Yeah.
And he could have been a pioneer in saying, this would have been impossible to do, so I had two choices. Either do nothing.
I have a Rolex case.
And leave the one of one, the only original white gold Rolex Daytona, reference 6265, in disrepair.
It's inoperable. It's a car that never got restored.
Or bring it to the greatest glory that I could possibly manage. And I spent a lot of time and money, and I did my best, and I'm proud of this watch, and I love it.
Yes.
That's a great story.
It is. Why
didn't he tell it? I don't know. Not the time and place. No, it is the time and place. I don't know why he didn't tell it.
Of course.
I don't know why he didn't tell it.
Yeah.
That's not insidious. That is not malicious. That isn't even, it's not even necessarily, it's borderline deceptive, but it's not even, I don't think you're falling in the morally condemnable area yet.
If he didn't say anything.
That he didn't say anything.
Okay.
I think that the auction house either knew the crossroads that they were at, or they really fucked up and just didn't know. I think they knew, especially right before the auction when that other Instagram account came forward with the information.
Yeah, I think usually at that level, word gets to pretty quick.
I would agree with that.
You know.
Okay, so if someone is morally wrong, I gotta be honest. I don't think Goldberger did the right thing, right. Assuming the assumptions that we're making here are true. But I don't think it's so bad. I think the argument for Goldberger would be, I did my best. I brought a watch forward. Yep. I never wanted to sell it to make a profit. I never wanted to sell it to make a grand profit. Rather, I was not trying to deceive the masses and make millions of dollars. I wanted to restore a watch, bring it to life. I didn't tell the story of the restoration when I could have, because at the time it was just not really it wasn't popular. Are you
talking about on Talking Watches?
On Talking Watches.
Yeah.
I didn't at the time care to be a pioneer for restoration. I hadn't decided that I wanted to be that yet.
Right.
Okay. Right. Even though I was personally, I wasn't necessarily sure I wanted to be that publicly. And then the watch. There was an opportunity at auction, and one thing led to another, and it got out of hand, and it should have been declared, but it wasn't. And I bit off more than I could chew, and I fucking donated the money to charity, and I didn't mean to deceive anyone, and I did my fucking best.
Right.
That's the best argument you can give for Goldberger.
Yep. But that would be admitting.
That would. He'd have to admit. I think at this point, you'd have to admit.
Right.
You'd have to admit what
you
happened.
think at this point something will come out further?
No, it's just, the evidence I think is on the overwhelming side.
Yeah.
So it's
right.
You're guilty. It seems to be that
you're silently guilty or loudly guilty.
Exactly.
Right.
So that's the Goldberger situation. Now on the auction house side, I think they fucked up.
Yeah.
They should have been a pioneer for restoration. If anyone had the power to do it, them paired with Hodinkee, they could have had the power to do it.
Ideally, they're the line. They're the stop line. Be like,
absolutely.
Sorry that we found this out. That does change things.
Phillips and Hodinkee together could have pioneered why this is okay.
Yes.
And it's not okay to deceive, but it's okay to restore.
Yes.
Okay? And that should have been what happened. That was the opportunity, and they didn't take advantage of it.
This is a marketing effort.
This ends up right. Now, the other problem is the proceeds went to charity. Mm-hmm. That's great. Mm-hmm. But I'm already not you haven't really earned a lot of trust in this sale. And you also never told us how much went to charity.
And we see a lot of times this charity thing is used to kind of be like, well, it's gone.
Yeah. Was it 5%? Was it 10%? Was it 100%? Mm-hmm. How much? So then it becomes, okay, because theft is always wrong.
Of course.
I don't care if the money goes to charity or not. It's wrong.
Right.
But I'm also now thinking it didn't go to charity necessarily. And some people line their pockets with deception.
With how much? $6.5 million?
$6.5 million. And that is very problematic for me.
Yes.
That is very problematic. So the moral of the story is if you're looking to buy a watch at auction, or any time you're looking to buy a watch.
No matter the level.
Particularly at auction.
Yes.
You really have to do your due diligence. Mm-hmm. You should ask around as far and wide as you possibly can. Don't necessarily trust the largest names in the business because take even malice out, an insidious, felonious behavior out.
Yeah.
People make mistakes. Make mistakes. And I do think that a lot of mistakes were made here on something that was so easily explainable and something that still would have been heralded.
Especially when it's this level, it's a flagship. It's the most important watch being auctioned. It's the only watch being auctioned. Everybody should be looking at that.
Yeah, right. So that is the problem. That's the problem. The definition of fake has changed so much. And when you're talking about vintage, fake doesn't necessarily just mean, right? Mm-hmm. Fake is too large of a term. It's this umbrella term. Mm-hmm. It's not a clone watch. It's not a watch manufactured in a different country and it's all in a different manufacturer. Everything can be manufactured at Rolex.
Yeah.
And I don't think that this all was, but it could be. Mm-hmm. But this is a very nuanced world. Any collectible world is very nuanced. And a lot of the big players don't treat it like that.
Right.
They like to treat it like that, when it benefits them, but not when it doesn't. And I think that the positive change we need to see in the watch industry is large figures like Hodinkee and like Phillips and like all the auction houses for that matter, doing some education on what is okay for restoration.
Writing the dictionary of something.
Yes.
Just because even... Well, is it restored? Is it fake? Is it Frankenstein?
Right.
Is it this? Is it that? It's like, okay, well, it's this, it's that,
yeah.
it's this, it's that. Yes, a actual dictionary.
Yes,
would go very far.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Now think about this. If this was just a not regular, but if this is a yellow gold 6263, okay,
yeah.
With replacement pushers.
Yes.
Not fake replacement.
Yes.
It would never even need to be disclosed.
Right.
Never need to be disclosed because no one can never know unless someone found a photo of it without pushers.
Of course,
right? It should be disclosed,
of course,
but it doesn't have to be because in theory, you're never going to find out. Which is it's just sick to think about that they will lie.
But there's just no possible.
But it is a Rolex part. But this situation is darker than that. Dark is a strong word, but it's different than that.
Yeah,
because that part just does not look to be factory Rolex at all.
Exactly.
It just doesn't.
What happened to the watch?
No one knows.
We don't know if it was taken back, if anything.
No, it was sold. I mean, I don't think it was ever returned. Wow. Oh, I mean, if it was, then that's huge news.
We don't know who bought it. We don't know where it went.
Wow. No. And you're going to tell me that the guy that bought it is never going to see this article?
Oh, come on. Anybody that pulls that watch out, if you're wearing it, they're going to be like, that's the
one with the fake parts, right?
Right. You're like, no, this is the one I paid $6.5 million for.
Yeah, right, exactly. So that becomes difficult. Again, I love the watch, and I don't think that the restoration is a problem at all.
Yeah,
I think that it should have just been disclosed, and it still would have fetched millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Millions. It's tough business.
That is tough business.
Anyway, that's it.
That's it.
That's fake Rolexes for you.
Yeesh, that's the big daddy of fake Rolex.